Hello, and welcome to an exciting new episode of Talking About Stoicism. We are going to have a look or talk about letter 59, which is a long letter, but there is something in it that I found quite nice. More letters by Lucius Annaeus Seneca. From Seneca to Lucilius, greetings. From your letter I derived great pleasure. For you must allow me to use common parlance, you mustn't recall my words to their Stoic meanings. It is our doctrine that pleasure is a fault. Be that as it may, pleasure is the word we generally use to refer to a glad feeling of the mind. I know, say I, that if we make words adhere to our statutes, then pleasure is discreditable, while joy pertains only to the wise person, for it is the elevation of a mind toward goods that are real and its own. Nonetheless, in our ordinary speech, we often say that we are overjoyed that one person was elected consul, or that another was married, or that his wife has given birth, events which, far from being causes for joy, are frequently the beginnings of future sorrow. For it is an attribute of joy that it never ceases or turns into its opposite. Thus, when our poet Virgil says, "and evil joys of mind," he speaks elegantly but not properly, for no joy is evil. He merely applied the term to pleasures, and expressed his meaning in that way, for the people referred to are happy with what is bad for them. Still, I was not wrong to say that I derive great pleasure from your letter, for even though the untrained person may be rejoicing for an honorable reason, still I refer to his emotion as pleasure, because it is unruly and swift to revert to the opposite state, and because it is set in motion by belief in a false good, and is controlled and is uncontrolled and excessive. But let me get back to my intended topic and tell you what it was that pleased me in your letter. You have your words under control. You are not carried away by your own eloquence. You don't let it go on longer than you intended. Many people are drawn by the allure of some pleasing phrase into writing on some topic rather than what they had set themselves. That doesn't happen to you. Everything you write is concise and suitable to the subject. You say only as much as you wish and convey more than you say. This indicates something even more important. It shows that your mind too contains nothing superfluous or overblown. Okay, two things. There is something here seems to be vibrating. I don't know what it is. I think someone activated the air conditioning. Anyway, on the one hand, there is what he ends with there, the ability to be concise, to speak properly. One of my strong suits. It's difficult. It's difficult to be concise, but it's something that we should strive for. And I've already devoted one of these videos to speaking deliberately, which I think is a very important aspect. So I'm just trying to move my device. I wonder if that vibration is picked up by the camera. Anyway, I'm sorry if it is. It's outside of my control. #Stoicism. Okay, so speaking deliberately is very important. It's a very Stoic thing. It's an important thing in life in general, I think. You speak only when you have something interesting to say, which is something people don't do anymore. These days, everyone has something to say all the time about everything, including things that are completely irrelevant or topics on which they are simply not really equipped to speak because they do not have the expertise that's required to speak on that topic. Anyway, as I said, I devoted a video in this series to speaking deliberately already, so I will refrain from going into that topic further. What I found very interesting was the way Seneca opens this letter with pleasure, the difference between pleasure and joy. And now we get into the nitty-gritty definitions that Stoics used for their school of philosophy. There are emotions, they would call them passions, not really passions, because they didn't write in English, but pathos, pathie, and they distinguish evpathos, good, passions and bad passions. Happiness can be a good passion. There's, again, I've said this many times, but you don't really ever hear anyone complain that they are too happy. I'm just too happy today. God damn it. That doesn't really happen. But too angry, too sad, too frustrated, that is a problem because it bothers you. And because it bothers you, it's worth thinking about what you can do to change that. So the passions are a bad thing. And in a way, Stoics might say something like, well, pleasure, that's a bad passion as well. And that may sound a bit counterintuitive, but when you think about what pleasure can give you, what it can do, and how distracting it can be, how people can fall prey to pleasure, think about addictions, which start out as doing something or taking something that's considered pleasurable, but that then takes over someone's life, right? I think that is a good illustration of how something pleasurable can be bad, right? Can become a bad thing. Again, the old adage of too much of a good thing is a bad thing, right? But then there is the aspect of joy, and joy is a little different, right? Seneca describes a sage, the sophos, the person that Stoics try to aspire to emulate, can experience joy. That's not an issue. You can find joy in certain things, but joy is not really something you get addicted to. Joy is not something that can become overwhelmingly negative. Now, it may sound like this is kind of mincing words and semantics and that kind of stuff, and I certainly wouldn't blame you if you feel that way, because again, this really gets to the nitty-gritty definitions used by Stoics to describe things in their philosophy. I've always found the distinction of a good passion and a bad passion an interesting one, a fascinating one, where, again, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing, where we must remember that even bad passions can be good. A Stoic is not really never angry. There are things that are worth being angry about, but that's the point. Then it has to be something worth being angry about, and then also being able to control as much as possible that bad passion so that you can then revert back to a normal everyday state and not be bothered by what has happened. This is not the same as thinking, I disagree with you, I have the right to be angry, let's beat the living crap out of you, and then I'll go my own way, and then we're fine again. Obviously, that is different and inexcusable. I would hope that goes without saying, but let's be very clear about that. So, it's striking a balance then. Pleasure, joy. Stoics are not ascetics. Stoics do not say you have to derive yourself of all pleasurable things. You cannot have nice food, you cannot drink nice things, you cannot own nice things, you cannot enjoy sexual things. That is not what Stoics said. Even I would say the harshest of the Greek schools of philosophy, the school of the Cynics, even those people said you can have sex. They were known for doing that in public even, which is interesting, but that was kind of because they didn't care about other people's opinions. Now, that's a very thin line. Anyway, having said that, the Cynics then did say you don't really have to own many things. That's just a distraction of virtue. You don't have to. So, I mean, they were more hardcore in that respect than the Stoics were. But having said that, Stoics do say you can enjoy yourself. Stoicism is not about, again, extirpating emotion, never feeling anything, never feeling joy. What kind of life would that be if you can't really enjoy anything, right? So, once again, it is a matter of striking a balance, which could be brought back to preferred and dispreferred indifference. Certain things, like money, people like to have money, all else being equal. That's a preferred indifferent. And then there are dispreferred indifference. Things like people, all else being equal, would prefer not to be sick, right? But in itself, if you have money or not, you can still do the right virtuous thing. And if you're sick or not, you can still do the right virtuous thing. Hence, indifference. They're indifferent to virtue, right? Anyway, you strike a balance and you think about the difference between pleasure and joy and how you can try, I think, to do everything in moderation. I hope this was a somewhat coherent story. Let me know what you think. I'm interested to hear about your viewpoints about the difference between pleasure and joy. If you agree with that or if you disagree with that, it's interesting to see different or read different viewpoints on that, I think. So there we have it. I hope this was useful. I thank you for watching, and I'll gladly see you again next week for more talk about Stoicism, and it will be enjoyable. Sorry.